Kaag Amazing. This is Teacher Milian of Teacher Milian TV. In this video, we are going to learn the different components of a scientific method and use the steps in solving problems. Are you ready to learn Kaag Amazing? If you find this video helpful, please do not forget to subscribe to this channel. Do not forget to like, share, and comment a moment of science, imagine, invent, and inspire. Let's go! Have you ever wondered how scientists find answers to their questions? How do they find solutions to the problems they encounter? Scientists use step-by-step procedures in solving problems. This procedure is called a scientific method. A scientific method is a systematic way of solving a problem and answering questions about the world around us. It's like a recipe that you followed to come up with a delicious food. We can use the scientific method to understand how the world even better. A scientific method consists of 7 components or steps. These are making an observation, asking a question, formulating a hypothesis, performing an experiment, recording and analyzing results, drawing conclusion, and communicating the results. Let us now discuss the different components of the scientific method. The first step of scientific method is making an observation. Observation is the process of getting information about the things around you. What do you use to observe things around you? If your answers are senses, then you are right. These senses includes the sense of hearing, sight, smell, taste, and touch. Take a look at these pictures. What possible observation can you make? One observation that you can make is the tomato plant that is placed in an area with sunlight has a lot of fruits. On the other hand, the tomato plant is placed on a shaded area has lesser fruits. After making an observation, the next step is asking a question from your observation. Your question should lead you to the problem. A problem is a question that you want to solve or the things you want to discover. One of the possible questions that you can ask from our observation a while ago, why the tomato plant located where there is sunlight have more fruits than the tomato plant located on a place where there is little amount of sunlight. The next step that we need to do is formulating hypothesis from our question. A hypothesis is an educated guess, a tentative answer, or a potential answer to the question or problem asked. The hypothesis must be in such a way that it can be tested through an experiment and have variables. A hypothesis is usually written in if-then format. The hypothesis or possible answer to our question earlier is if tomato plant is placed in an area where there is enough sunlight, then it will produce more fruits. The next step that we need to do is to test or verify our hypothesis. To test if the hypothesis is correct or not, we need to design, develop, and perform an experiment. An experiment is a series of tests used to verify the hypothesis. Your experiment should contain all the variables involved in it. Variables are the measurable characteristics or parameter that can modify or change in an experiment. There are 3 types of variables. The independent variable, which is the variable or condition that you can change in an experiment. Second, a dependent variable is a variable or condition that you measure or observe. The third one, controlled variable, which is the variable that you keep constant or unchanged during an experiment. For our example earlier, we want to test our hypothesis hypothesis, which is if tomato plant is placed in an area where there is enough sunlight, then it will produce more fruits. We will design an experiment testing the effects of sunlight on the number of fruits that tomato plant will produce. The independent variable will be the amount of sunlight. The dependent variable, the number of fruits that a tomato plant will produce. The possible controlled variable is the amount of water, type of soil, type of plant, and the size of the bag. Aside from variables, your experiment should also contain the materials and procedures that you are going to use. The experiment should also be repeated several times to make sure that the first result is not just an accident. The next part is recording the data and analyzing the results. These steps is when you will report, interpret, and explain what happened in your experiment. You can use charts and graphs in presenting your data and results to make it easier to visualize for your audience. Data are the information that you gathered in your experiments. The next part of the scientific method, drawing a conclusion. The conclusion is the summary of the results you gathered in your experiment. This will give you an answer if your hypothesis is correct or not. If the hypothesis is correct, this may be the answer to your problem. If not, you need to repeat the experiment or think a new approach to improve your procedures. You can also go back to the first step if needed. For our example, the possible conclusion to our problem is plants such as tomato that are placed in an area with enough amount of sunlight produce more fruits than those plants placed in less amount of sunlight. Based on this statement, we can say that our hypothesis is correct. After making a conclusion, the next step is to communicate the results. You need to inform others about the results of the experiment. Professional scientists communicate the results by publishing it in scientific journals, presenting it on a poster, or by presenting it during a conference. You may find other versions of the scientific method, but you should remember that their purpose is the same. That is to find solutions to our problem in a logical and organized way. You can also share your findings just like the scientists. And those are the different components of a scientific method. Again, these are making an observation, asking a question, formulating a hypothesis, performing an experiment, recording and analyzing the results, drawing a conclusion, and communicating the result. Once again, this is Teacher Milian of Teacher Milian TV. Until next time, bye-bye. Keep safe, everyone.